Return to the land, and I will be with you. Genesis chapter 31 verses 3 to chapter 32 verse 2, Jeremiah chapter 30 verses 10 to 16, and James chapter 4 verses 1 to 12. Introduction. Have you been to a far place for a long time and you return to your land? Last parasha Adonai Yod He Vav He remembered Rachel. He also listened to her and opened her womb, and she bore Yosef. That moment, Jacob requested Laban, his father-in-law, to send him away and go back to his place. But Laban begged Jacob to stay because of the blessing that he had since Jacob came. Jacob offered Laban a plan in favor of him to prosper while costing his father-in-law nothing. Thus Jacob became exceedingly prosperous. Our parasha today starts with the instruction of Adonai Yod He Vav He to Jacob, to return to his land, with a promise that he will be with him. Immediately, Jacob obeyed Adonai and he invites Rachel and Leah to the field to secretly share his plan to leave. Since Jacob really longed to leave the place of Laban, he aligned his will to the will of Adonai. Obedience is important for every grafted-in believer because it is our way of showing that we love him. In John chapter 14 verse 15 Yeshua said, "If you love me, you will keep and obey my commandments." Now what are the proofs that Adonai Yod He Vav He is with Jacob? First, he was with Jacob even Laban's countenance was not favorable toward him verse 5. Jacob told his two wives that in spite of working hard for Laban, his father-in-law changed his wages 10 times, but Adonai did not allow him to be hurt by Laban. Second, he took away the livestock of Laban and gave it to Jacob verse 9. It came to a point that the sons of Laban envied Jacob. They accused him that he took all that was their father's. But Adonai intervened. He let Jacob to prosper. Third, he spoke to Jacob in a dream through his angel verses 10 to 13. Adonai did this because he saw what Laban was doing to Jacob. Through dream, he let Jacob see the rams which leapt upon the flocks were streaked, speckled, and gray-spotted. The last part of Jacob's dream was Adonai telling him to return to the land of his family. Adonai also mentioned Bethel. Why? Because he wants to remind Jacob of the place where he made an offering and vowed that he will be his God. Fourth, he came to Laban in a dream verse 24. Adonai warned Laban not to speak to Jacob either good or bad. Here, Adonai repeated what he did to Abraham and Isaac in protecting them from harm of Abimelech. When Laban overtook Jacob, he told him that he has power to harm Jacob, but he refused because of his dream. Fifth, he allowed Laban and Jacob to have a covenant verses 44 to 55. Laban asked Jacob not to afflict Rachel and Leah, or to have other wives. Also, they agreed not to harm each other. They spent the night, and the next day Laban kissed and blessed his daughters. Then he returned to his place. Sixth, he spared Jacob from idolatry verses 30 to 35. When Laban found that his household idol was missing, he became upset. Since Jacob knew the one true God, the God of Abraham and his father Isaac, it's not possible that he shared this with his wives. Therefore, Rachel stole the idol of her father that could cause an idolatry with the family of Jacob. We can see here the battle between the God of Jacob and the gods of Laban that can't do any miracle when it is lost, because it has no power. Our Torah portion is an encouragement to us that Adonai Yod He Vav He is with his servant. Nobody harms Jacob because Adonai is with him. Like Jacob, Adonai is with us, to protect and bless us. In Haftarah portion, Adonai Yod He Vav He spoke to his prophet Jeremiah and told him that he will bring back his people Israel and Judah from captivity. Jacob shall return to his land from Babylon. Going back to Egypt, Adonai called Moshe to bring Israel out from slavery, and this time, he will do it again. Because of his covenant with them, he will save them and no one shall make them afraid. In verses 12 to 16, we can see two things that will happen with Israel. First, Adonai will discipline his chosen people because of their sin. Their lovers will forget them. Adonai will allow it so Israel would learn to call on the name of their one true God. Second, those nations who have oppressed Israel will be destroyed. Our Haftarah portion is a reminder to us that Israel is still the apple of the eye of Adonai Yod He Vav He. Zechariah chapter 2 verse 8, For the Lord of armies says this, After glory he has sent me against the nations that plunder you, for the one who touches you, touches the apple of his eye. In Apostolic, James is reminding us that whoever wants to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God, such as wars and fights in community because of desires for pleasure verses 1-3. B. Adultery verses 4. C. Double-minded verses 8. D. Proud verses 6. E. Speaking evil of one another verses 11. F. Judging his brother verses 11. For James, to avoid these things, we need to draw or return to Adonai Yod Hav Vav He, so he could draw near to us. What does drawing near to Adonai mean? I believe the answer is in verses 7 and 8. Drawing near to Adonai means, we need to submit ourselves to him, resist the devil, cleanse our hands and purify our hearts. The connection of our parasha is about making a return and an assurance of Adonai's presence. In Torah, Adonai tells Jacob to return to his land and he will be with him. In Haftarah, Adonai will return Israel and Judah back to their land from captivity, for he is with them. In Apostolic, to avoid having friendship with the world, we must return or draw near to Adonai, and he will draw near to us. Back to my introduction. It feels good to be back in your land after a long time. But it feels better to know that on your journey in life, Adonai Yod He Vav He is with you, to help, protect and bless you. Isaiah chapter 41 verses 10, Fear not, for I am with you, be not dismayed, for I am your God, I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous hand. Shabbat Shalom.